Alright guys, if you're looking for a build that absolutely melts bosses with infinite ordnance and 2 lasers, this might be the one for you. And best of all, we don't have to farm for the OP Jakobs knife to make this work. So we'll be using the red tree for this build using his peace breakers, and what really makes the build work is Bullet Buddy Deluxe. I knew this augment was broken from the second I saw it, so what it does, when you activate your peace breakers, you can press F again to make it so your guns and your ordnances consume no ammo for 8 seconds, which can be reactivated as long as you have duration. And this is what enables all of our build. So we start with 5 points into gun damage, because who doesn't like more damage? But we could also instead go into fire rate. This is because during our 8-second windows of infinite ammo, the more we fire, the more damage we do. So fire rate's a pretty significant DPS upgrade for this build. So forgive my Spanish pronunciation during this, but next we go juega, which makes it so whenever we crit enemies with our peace breakers, it restores action skill duration. And this actually gives us a lot more duration than you would think, because our cannons are actually really accurate, aim for the head and crit basically all the time. Next we get 5 points into Resiliencia, which gives us 30% damage reduction during our overdrive. We take this because as we go up in Ultimate Vault Hunter levels, we take more damage, so this just makes us a lot more tanky. We also take El Valiente, which gives us 60% bonus damage if our shields are full. A lot of the time when you start a boss fight, you hit first and have full health and shields, meaning you always get that 60% bonus damage at the start. And notice how it says from all sources, so this is one of the few things on the tree that actually buffs our ordnance damage. To buff our damage even further, we go into Confetti. This makes it so our ordnances deal bonus elemental damage based on the weapon that we're holding at the time. So if we're holding a radiation weapon, now our ordnances also deal bonus radiation damage on every shot. And because this is so important to our build, I've also got a class mod which gives me an additional 4 points for 72% bonus damage. You've probably noticed I'm always aiming down sight when I'm using my ordnance weapon, and that's because concentrated build-up gives us 60% bonus shock damage if we do so. So our build does bonus shock damage on our shots, plus whatever element of the gun we're holding at the same time. I picked Beam Team here because it gives us an additional layer of damage with both shock and corrosive beams on our target, and it also stacks in damage every time we apply a status effect, and we're going to be applying status effects all the time thanks to concentrated build-up, because every time we're aiming down sight, we're going to be doing at least shock damage on its own. And finally, we take El Alacran. This makes it so anything our lasers are shooting are more likely to receive status effects, which also buffs our beam team, but buffs our elemental damage on our ordnances as well. And finally, we get 5 points into Everdrive. This makes it so even when our Peacebreaker cannons are down, we still maintain our bonuses, such as the damage reduction and some stuff I'll show you in the blue tree for much longer to make the build a lot more comfy. You may be wondering, why don't I take Vitriol? If we have infinite ammo, doesn't that make it so our first shots always deal corrosive? And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Even if you have infinite ammo, Vitriol only affects the first shot you fired, so it kind of blows. So that's why we don't touch this. Now into the blue tree, we start with 5 points into the Thrill. As I said before, we only have 8-second windows of infinite ammo, so the more fire rate we have, the more DPS we do, so we always want more fire rate. I go 5 points into Potential just for an extra layer of survivability. And saving the best for last, we get 5 points into First Impression. This makes it so our first shot of a fully loaded magazine does 50% increased damage. But the thing here is when we're in our infinite ammo mode, this applies to all of our shots for that duration. So this buffs our build really hard. And for specializations, you just want to rush down into the gadgeteer tree to get the ordnance bonuses, primarily full spectrum arsenal. This makes it so benefits to our gun damage also apply at 50% to our ordnance damage. So for example, this skill gives me 25% gun damage that also gives me 12.25% ordnance damage as well. Another standout is Fragmentation Payload, which lets our ordnance abilities crit, and we increase the crit damage that they do, just an extra bit of damage on top. So as we're using ordnance for most of our damage, you can pretty much pick whatever of these weapons that you like, but I'll go through mine and ones I recommend. I highly recommend you pick up a Radiation Wombo Combo. When you're just running around killing regular enemies, this absolutely shreds. It does really high damage, and when you aim down sight with it, you get your bonus shock damage, so you can do shock and radiation at the same time. It's a really good weapon. This is also the weapon I hold before I switch into my ordnance, which means my ordnance get the bonus radiation damage on top of their damage. I really like the Hot Slugger. It's not really like key to this build in any way. I just enjoy using it and I recommend you get one. I have the Rainbow Vomit here because whilst we're aiming down sight, it makes us do Cryo, Incendiary, Radiation, and our bonus shock for 4 elements all at once, which is super fun. And for the main event, the ordinance we choose is the Ravenfire, specifically the kinetic version. You might think that the elemental ones would be better, but notice how this does 5,600 DPS. The elemental ones drop to 3,000. And that fall off in damage is so extreme that it's not worth using. Even against enemies that have shields, armor, the default kinetic one does way more damage. You can also use these Torgue launchers, the one with the 25 rounds in the clip, specifically to have the 2-shot augment. They come in elements too, so if you can find an elemental version of this, it's also really strong. So before I said fire rate is a huge DPS upgrade for this build, which is why we use the shiny war paint. That means before we activate our infinite ammo, we pop this, we get 30% increased fire rate on top of our other bonuses to make our weapons absolutely shred. The build is significantly weaker without this Repkit, so make sure you get it. For class mods, I have the Grenazerka, but obviously we're not using grenades, so I don't gain anything from those stats. The only reason I'm using this one is you see I'm getting +4 in confetti. So ideally, you would use something like the Instigator that has +5 in confetti. That's what you're looking for. For our shield, we take Super Soldier, and if you remember from our tree, we get 60% bonus damage when our shields are full, and this gives us Overshield, which helps keep our shield full for longer, so we do that 60% bonus damage for as long as possible at the start of the fight. And here's my enhancement. Honestly, if you can find a better one than this, then use it. My one's not too good. Just get one that's Torgue, because that synergizes, of course, with our Ravenfire and our Linebacker if you choose to use it. So just a little bit of tech. When you're using an Ordinance weapon, your movement speed is penalized quite a bit. So instead of moving side to side like a sitting duck, whilst in the fight, you glide side to side instead to make you harder to hit, and it will keep your shields up so you can get that bonus damage. Also, if you just finished a boss fight but your abilities are on cooldown, just go to a Zed's Meds and you're good to go. I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you try this build, let me know how it went for you in the comments. And as always, if you want to see more videos, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.